of unity with tea is that you can do it anywhere, anytime, with any leaf. And I have great respect. I'm in awe of some of the, chado, the Japanese tea ceremonies. They are exquisite and hold me in a different way. But with Mr. Gao, my mentor, it's those moments where you're just sitting, enjoying time. You're reflecting on your own. You're watching the village go to sleep. You're listening to the tinkering in the kitchen of food being prepared. Those are the moments that sort of hold me and draw me back again and again. And I think they have created the biggest impression. He'll talk about a drought, too much rain. He'll talk about, his village's history. So it's about the tea, but it's a lot. It's like a facilitator to do and speak about so many other things.
Mr. Gao was, I was feeling, his presence. I could see the table. I could see the cigarette.
Yeah.
I remember the meals in China,
Yeah, the meals don't stop. And the other thing about Mr. Gao, and I have to mention this because he's got the most beautiful little mustache. Oh. You don't expect it because you don't see healthy mustaches in Yunnan very often. His mustache is something.
I love that. I wrote a lot of the wisdom of Mr. Gao already in my notes. And, it reminded me of one of my teachers saying, Yvonne, if you look for the Buddha, you're going to miss the Buddha. The Buddha will be in the most informal moments. He used to say that. So don't look for the Buddha or you're going to miss it. And, in the Japanese ceremony, it's exquisite. I mean, there is, we admire, I admire, and I know you too, the excellence and the exquisiteness of the art. It has another kind of texture and gravity to it. But these experiences that change our life forever, the word of an elder or a child, those are lingering in the soul. So
just back to your, yes, we were talking earlier about kids.
Yeah.
So I serve kids. We have right now, we have 25 kids.
Wow.
One of the things we do in the afternoon is I try to serve tea. And I tell them it's their time they can like the tea, hate the tea, it doesn't matter. But it's about 15 minutes where they can do their own thing. And recently, with one of the groups, I had forgotten, there was things going on. I'd forgotten to serve tea in the middle of the afternoon. And I wasn't sure if the kids were actually enjoying it. Some of the kids came up and said, "Oh, are we not doing tea today?" And I said, "Oh yeah, we are. I said, "Do you like the tea times?" And they said, "Yeah, no, it's a great time. It gives us energy, and it's their time to have a chat amongst themselves. There's no program. There's no focused discussion group. It's nothing. They can be silent, take the tea by a tree, or they can chat, and they do get it." And I didn't explain anything formal about tea time. I said, this is to accompany your free time. So enjoy it. Whatever you want to do, you've got 15 minutes. So back to kids, I think innately a lot of youth understands a lot of things. Yeah. But if they don't see it in practice, if they don't see the informal enjoyment, if they're not part of a gathering, if they're just being talked to or lectured to, and we want them to understand these theoretical conversations, but not just show them living, just living.
Yes.
Then we're doing a kind of a disservice, I think. And I think to a degree, we're responsible as parents, as guardians, as mentors, as adults to provide not simply, this is what you should know, this is how you should live. We should be living as an example. And because I think kids understand that too many words, they're suspect of that. If we're talking too much and trying to sell something, youth gets it. So I think there's a lot in the way we live and in our deeds and in our words that they see that are far greater lessons than the stuff that's coming out of the mouth.
Absolutely. You know, we teach more by what we do than than what we say most of the times. It's you reminded me right now, my dad. My dad usually felt like I was not enough time with you all. I was working. I'm like, no, but you show us. I pay tribute today to him because he showed us living. He was excited. He was passionate. He used to be an adventurer, travel and everything. And I learned from that. He's so free that I learned freedom from what I saw him do instead of what he told me to do.
Yes.
Many times he sent me to schools, all of that. But what I saw him do gave me a silent permission to do that and more. He jumps off a plane, I'll jump twice, Dad. It's and all of that. Well, I want to talk about the Tea Horse Road, even if it's briefly. I know we have a couple of minutes, and I know we'll send people to your movie. We'll send people to links for people to explore these, but just briefly. And also, I wanted to know. I heard. I don't know. Do you also do tea? Harvest tea? You have your own tea? Okay, so let's do those two. I don't know how. Imagine this is a messy Mexican dinner right now, and so it's now your turn to talk.
Yeah, the best dinners are messy. So the Tea Horse Road, that was an unintentional discovery. I went to Yunnan years ago, and I was introduced to it by a local Tibetan friend who was explaining the history, his own personal story. And I mean, the tea was already in my blood. The mountains were in my blood, but he started talking about this route through the Himalaya. And I remember thinking, what? This is a trade route that we don't know of in the West, that predates the Silk Road, that was taking salt, resin, tea, copper, malas, Buddhist scriptures along these crazy pathways, along ledges in the mountains. And I remember thinking, why don't we know more about this route? And so he and I made a pledge. We shook hands as we spoke to try and tell the story and in my case, I was trying to write a book about it. It took 2-3 years to prepare, to get funding, to understand the logistics, and also understand the impact that this route had, because this was, basically linking Tang Dynasty China, 8th century China, with the Himalaya, with Pakistan, with India, with Nepal, with all of these points of the Asian compass. And it stayed active until the 1950s and 60s. And for me, it was a moment of, okay, we've never heard about this, and it's this important, and it was going for this long. Why? So for me, it was the desire, at least. I didn't really have a plan at the time, but the desire was there. We have to tell the story, and in order to tell the story, we have to travel the route.
Wow.
And it's
survived it, because people don't know how that's a journey of just life and death.
It was incredible, and it touched so many facets and parts of Asian culture. It linked dozens of cultures to each other. And if we look at it being tea based, tea was one of the main commodities for all those years. And I repeat this often, but there's a great saying of the mountains along the route: if a cup of tea isn't offered, a relationship isn't offered.
Wow.
So you get an idea that if, how the vital nature of tea along this commodity route.
Wow.
So, yeah, and it has to be said, during the expedition, we spent about a third, maybe 30% of the expedition lost because there were very little in the way of maps. We had to speak to people to actually understand which direction we're going. And that, of course, made it more vibrant. The fact that, for a good chunk of time, we didn't know where we were going. We had to use translators. We had to speak to 85-year-old women whose memory was in large part the reason we were able to complete the journey. Wow. So, and it reminds of the communication aspect of because the history of the Tea Horse Road is largely one of oral narratives. It's the oral tradition which kept information flowing along the route. It was an old pipeline, so it was it was a beautiful journey, and it's an experience that stays in my bones. The memory of these elders, the moment of taking really bad butter tea in the middle of an afternoon.
Read that. I watched that.
There were moments where you thought, okay, well, it's not about what I think of it. It's not about anything I think. It's about that moment. And so that led to other journeys, other expeditions to track other parts of the Himalayas and these extraordinary trade routes, because they're largely an untold part of not only the economics and the spiritual spread, but also of human relationships.
Wow. Well, thank you for doing the road. Thank you for going there, because you brought the road to a lot of us, right? With your photography, with your stories, with your you're sharing the journey, and we're going there. Like me, I went there. I was like, what? I didn't even know the whole story of the horse road until I heard about you. I was like, where have I been? Where has this been? And then I began to travel, at least right now in my mind. Hopefully soon we'll be able all to begin to travel again. We'll go with the flow of the rivers of life right now. So, and about your tea, tell me about your tea. You have your own tea that you offer?
Yes. I mean, the whole Tea Horse Road, I kept drinking teas when I lived in Yunnan. I was there for 10 years, every year going down, spending weeks, months in the tea regions. And I thought, okay, I'm just drinking this tea. And so I started bringing backpacks full of tea back to Canada, to Europe, to friends, going through customs, interesting, with these bricks and circles. But that started off this idea that, well, maybe I should just formalize this kind of tea smuggling, turn it into something. And I met someone living in the Himalayas, and he was sort of in my home for a while. He and his wife were traveling, and he started drinking tea with me, and he says, well, we should start selling tea. So we did. So we started a small company that only sells and only sold pu'er.
Oh, nice. You still have that company?
Yes, it's called Gya'lam teas.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll put all the links for everyone. Because it'll be so nice to have one of your teas while they hear the podcast or they watch your videos or your pictures, because it's not even about that. It's to live those moments, kind of time travel. I'm a believer that you can time travel any moment just with the power of our imagination and our memory. That's why we have it. And we can travel with you. We can meet the people you meet.
Let's do it.
A journey of the spirit with tea, and with the mountain with tea, and with Jeff, an expedition for the soul. I like the name. That just came through. Expedition of the Soul, Jeff. We're going to take everyone.
You're genius.
Well, thank you. I think it's the chi, the flow of spirit right now. So, Jeff, anything, I know I don't want to take more of your time. You have your family, your tea, and all the things that you're going to do. Any blessing that you will want to grant? We have a lot of young audience. Anything for their awareness to be in the now, to communicate, to whatever you want. A blessing for anyone that